Hello viewers, welcome to Kids Auto and Truck Repair. Today we have a 2011 Chevy Corvette with a 6.2 liter engine. The customer complaint on this vehicle is the check engine light remains on the dash while the engine is running, and the vehicle is losing power tremendously. The owner of this vehicle is one of our subscribers here on our YouTube channel. His name is Mr. Burton. Mr. Burton drove all the way from New York to come to our shop. He drove about 4 hours away to bring this Corvette to our shop. He told me that there were some works that were done to the vehicle. There are a lot of components that were replaced. The issue with this vehicle is the engine is misfiring. The injectors were replaced, the coils, the spark plugs, and there are a couple more components that were replaced. He sent me a list of everything that was replaced. Once we get in a vehicle, I will read you the list of everything that was replaced. So now let's go in the vehicle so we can start the engine and confirm the customer's complaint. After confirming the customer's complaint, then we're gonna talk about what directions we're gonna go so we can fix this vehicle. Now, before we go in the vehicle, I would like to give a shout out to our awesome cameraman Kyler. Thanks for being here and thanks for the awesome work you're doing. So now let's go in the vehicle so we can confirm the customer's complaint. Guys, before we go in the vehicle and confirm the customer's complaint, I want you guys to kind of enjoy the beauty of this vehicle. This is a nice vehicle. I like the color. As I was test driving it, look at the headlight. Looks nice. Ooh, very smooth. It looks like it got detailed not too long ago. I like the red. This is a nice vehicle. So we wanted to give you guys a quick little tour. I mean, a kind of a runaround, I guess, if we can call it like that, of this nice Corvette. This is a nice vehicle. I like the paint. This red is really nice. I like it. You know, kind of looks like a Ferrari. Although we know it's not a Ferrari, but kind of looks like it. It's really nice. All right, so now let's go in the vehicle. All right, let's start the engine. Ooh, this vehicle sounds good. Let me rev up the engine. Nice. I hope you guys can hear that. The sound of the power. This vehicle has 120,000 miles, 522. So it doesn't have a lot of miles. So now I'm gonna show you the dash so you can see the check engine light that's remaining on the dash. So right there, check that out. So right there, as you can see, the check engine light remains on the dash. So customer's complaint confirmed. Actually, the whole car is shaking. And then the center console here was taken apart. So, I mean, the owner of this vehicle is very knowledgeable about car repair. I believe he does some of the repairs himself, so he probably took the radio off. All right, so now let's turn off the engine. I'm going to turn the key on. So to turn the key on this one, you have to press and hold the start button without stepping on the brake pedal. I remember a while ago when I first worked on one of these Corvettes, I had a hard time trying to turn the key on. So I didn't know that you have to press and hold the button to turn the key on. So right there. So key is on. Now, before I get the scan tool connected, before we bring the scan tool up, I want to read to you what the customer told me in terms of the things that were replaced. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this. I'm going to mention this again. The owner of the vehicle is very mechanically inclined. I believe he replaced some of the components himself, and he told me that he installed AC Delco parts. And I asked if those AC Delco parts came from the dealer. He told me some other parts he got online. So when I hear the word online, I'm like, that's not good. So I don't know what we're gonna find. Let's see. Here are all the components that were replaced. The alternator was replaced. He installed the AC Delco alternator. The spark plugs were replaced. He installed AC Delco Iridium spark plugs. Spark plug wires were replaced with AC Delco ones. AC Delco belt tensioner, so I'm assuming the serpentine belt. The belt itself was replaced with the AC Delco one. The mass airflow sensor was replaced with the AC Delco one. The fuel sending unit was replaced on the driver's side. So I believe the fuel pump assembly was replaced. The radiator was replaced with the AC Delco radiator. The O2 sensor on bank 1, the upstream O2 sensor on bank 1 was replaced with the Delphi O2 sensor. And then the fuel injectors were replaced. He installed Bosch fuel injectors on this vehicle. The throttle body was cleaned. The intake manifold gasket was replaced. The oil pan gasket was replaced. The air filter was replaced. Guys, you can't make this up. Like, this is the list right here. Okay, I'm reading. This is what he sent me. This is what I'm reading. So, and then there's another one, because he sent me 2 lists. And then he said the engine air filter was replaced, the cabin air filter was replaced, the rear differential fluid was changed, the power steering hose was replaced, and then the system was bled. Shocks were replaced. Now, all these other things don't have anything to do with the check engine light being on. The power stop drill and slotted rotors. Okay, so rotors were replaced and front pads. Okay, so a bunch of stuff were replaced, but the vehicle is still misfiring. So now I'm gonna bring up our scan tool. Let's see what we're gonna find. But he did tell me that there is a misfire code that they cannot figure out. So let's see what we got. We're gonna scan this vehicle, and hopefully this is not gonna be too crazy to diagnose. This is a 2011. Let's auto ID the vehicle. So right there, the scan tool has identified the vehicle, 2011 Chevrolet Corvette with a 6.2 liter engine. Let's click OK. Let's do a code scan. Let's scan all the control units on the vehicle and see what we got. Okay, so right off the bat, we have one code in the engine computer. Our code is P0300. Now, most of us are familiar with this code. This code can be caused by, lack of fuel to some cylinders in the engine, or not enough fuel pressure. We could have a mechanical problem, but mostly when you have a mechanical problem, you're gonna have one specific cylinder that's misfiring. So we could have maybe the injectors that he installed are not good enough, or maybe the coils are failing, because I've seen one coil fail and cause the PO300 code to be set. So this code can be caused by, at this point you never know, fuel delivery, lack of spark, or a mechanical problem. So now we have to do some tests to figure out what's causing this code. So now let's scroll down and see what else we have in the other control units on the vehicle. We have one code in the ABS control unit. We have one code in the HVAC control unit. And then on the generic side of the tool, we have one code. The same code, P0300. Now, since we have a random multiple cylinder misfire, what I want to do now is, I want to look at some misfire data. Let's see if we have some misfire data PIDs that will pinpoint us towards where the issue might be. So this is a six-speed automatic. Let's read the code one more time. So right there, P0300, and I'm sure most of us are very familiar with this code. So let's go to data. Let's look at Misfire data first. Let's see what we got. Now let's look at the history. All cylinders have misfire counts. Look at cylinder 2. Cylinder 2 has 1483 count. Dang. So all these cylinders are misfiring. Cylinder 4. Wait a minute. Where did it go? Yeah, cylinder 2 has 1483. Cylinder 4 has 1900. Cylinder 6 has 3808. Look at this one over here. So all these cylinders have misfire count. Cylinder 1, cylinder 5 has got 1004, and then cylinder 3 is got 591, and then cylinder 7 is got 2818. Now, usually when you see all the cylinders have misfire counts like that, the question you have to ask yourself is, what is affecting all the cylinders? Because if we had one specific cylinder that was misfiring, that was going to be another issue, or our diagnosis process was going to take a different route. But since all the cylinders are being affected, we have to think about what is the one thing that can affect all the cylinders. We could have a fuel delivery problem. Now, we have to keep in mind that the fuel pump was replaced. We're not gonna just not check that. We still have to check our fuel delivery to the injectors. Maybe we don't have enough fuel pressure or fuel volume going to the injectors. That's one thing. We could have a mass airflow sensor that's under reporting, although it was changed, but that is one thing that can cause that. So I'm thinking about what are the possible causes of this. We could have a defective crank sensor. I've had bad crank sensors throw random multiple cylinder misfire codes. We could have a wiring issue in the coil, especially if you have a ground problem, a coil ground, like a ground wire that supplies ground to all the coils, that can affect the performance of all the coils. So at this point, it could be anything. So right now, there is no specific way of going about it. We have to pick one system and test it, and then we'll go from there. So now, what I want to do now is I would like to start the engine, and then let's observe these data feeds right now to see if there will be a specific cylinder that will start misfiring first before the others. So cylinder 8 has 918 count. So let's start this thing. Okay, so the engine is running. Look at cylinder 2. Cylinder 2 is counting. Cylinder 4 is counting. Cylinder 6 is counting too. Okay, cylinder 7 is counting. So all of them basically. So this over here confirms the code that we have in the engine computer. So all the cylinders are misfiring. Now the other thing I want to do is let's scroll down and see if we have fuel trim numbers here, because sometimes fuel trim numbers can give us an indication of what kind of misfire that we're dealing with. I mean, looking at fuel trim numbers is not accurate all the time, but it helps sometimes. Okay, so we do not have fuel trim numbers here. So it's good to know that, you know, we have all our cylinders that are misfiring. So I'm gonna back out. Let's go to fuel trim data. Let's see. Let's see what numbers we have. So short-term fuel trim bank 1 is 2%. It's going between 2 and -3. And then long-term fuel trim bank 1 is -10. Short-term fuel trim bank 2 is -6. It's going between -6 and -10. And then long-term fuel trim bank 2 is -17. So our fuel trim numbers don't look too bad, but there's one thing I'm noticing. We have minus numbers. So minus numbers means the computer is trying to take away fuel, okay? So this can be a clue over here. The fact that we have minus numbers, it means the computer is probably seeing a reach input from the O2 sensors, and then it's trying to subtract fuel from the cylinders. So which means we could have an injector or injectors that are spraying more than they're supposed to, or maybe he got the wrong type injectors, or we could have O2 sensors that are sending a wrong signal to the engine computer, and the engine computer may think like the mixture is not right in the cylinder, and that can cause this too. So here's what I'm gonna do. Let me customize this list. I don't want to run this engine for too long, so we're gonna look at just a couple of data PIDs. We're gonna look at our fuel trim numbers, and then we're also gonna look at our O2 sensor data PIDs. Let's grab our mass effluent sensor, engine temperature, engine speed. Okay, let's see what we got. I'm gonna graph all our O2 sensor data PIDs. So O2 sensor bank 1, sensor 1 looks good. O2 sensor bank 2, sensor 1, okay, fine. I like how our O2 sensors are switching between reach and lean. That's good. Our second O2 sensors also seem pretty fine. So I'm gonna rev up the engine. I just wanna see how quickly these O2 sensors will respond. This is a quick check we can do to check the O2 sensors. Okay. I'm gonna rev up the engine. Let's see if we can drive these O2 sensors lean, reach. So right there, we drove the O2 sensors reach. So that's good. We most likely don't have a fuel delivery problem. So I'm gonna pump the brakes so I can drive these O2 sensors lean. So right there, you guys have seen me do this trick. So I'm pumping the brake pedal to drive these O2 sensors lean. So right there, I'm driving the sensors lean. I'm gonna let off. So once I let off, they should all go rich. Oh, check that out. Yeah, so we can drive our O2 sensors lean and rich. The O2 sensors are responding to the oxygen content in the exhaust stream. So this is good. Our O2 sensors are responding very well. So we don't have an O2 sensor problem, because you can have bad O2 sensors that can cause misfire codes. So we're good here. So let's back out. Actually, let's go back to fuel trim numbers. Long-term bank 1 is -19%, and long-term bank 2 is -22%. So the computer is subtracting some fuel. Now, this could also be caused by bad ignition coils, because if we have ignition coils that are weak, this can cause negative fuel trim numbers, because if our ignition coils are not firing the mixture inside the cylinders properly, that can cause that too, because we will have raw fuel being pushed out of the exhaust stream, and the computer can tend to subtract fuel from the cylinders. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Let's turn off the engine. Let's turn the key on. Let's turn the key on and see what happens. So we gotta pick a direction. What direction are we gonna go? Okay, so key is on. So the first thing I am gonna do is let's do a quick relative compression test. Okay, I'm gonna use my lab scope. We're gonna connect our lab scope to the battery. I'm gonna disable the fuel system. I don't think we have a mechanical issue with this engine, but let's do that so we can rule out any potential mechanical issues that this engine might have, and then we'll go from there. So I'm gonna disable all the injectors and then we're gonna crank the engine. Let's listen to it to see if we have any mechanical problems. Now, I don't think this vehicle has clear flood mode. Let me try. I'm gonna step all the way on the accelerator pedal and then I'm gonna try to crank the engine. Let's see if this is just gonna crank. Oh, right there. Okay, so this thing has clear flood mode. That's good to know. The engine sounds good. I don't think we have a mechanical problem with this engine. I hope you guys heard that. I'm gonna crank it one more time. Just listen to the engine cadence. Maybe I should get a scope test lead so you guys can see our peaks and valleys across the lab scope. I'm gonna get that connected so I can show you. I mean, the engine sounds good. I don't think we have a mechanical problem, but I also understand that the mic may not pick this up as well as I would like to. I'm gonna grab a scope test leads so I can show you the waveform on the lab scope screen. So I'll grab that and then I'll be right back. All right, so I have my test lead here. We're gonna open the hood. Look how nice this thing is. Wow. The good thing about this is that it's easy to get to the injectors and the ignition coils. So that's gonna make our testing a lot easier. Now, the other thing that we can do is, actually, before I get sidetracked, so I'm gonna connect my test lead to the battery. Okay, here's our battery. So yellow one is gonna go to battery positive. And then black one is gonna go to battery negative. Okay? And then I'm gonna take this into the vehicle. So now let's go in the vehicle so we can do our relative compression test. All right, back in the vehicle, I'm gonna connect my test lead to our lab scope. Okay, so let's go to our scope multimeter. Okay, so we just need one channel on. We're gonna AC couple this. We're gonna drop this down to 2 volts. We're gonna increase our time base to 1 second per screen. Now I am going to crank the engine. So we're gonna put this in clear flood mode. I'm gonna step all the way to the floor on the accelerator pedal. We're gonna start the engine. Okay, so I didn't like what I saw. How do you stop this thing? Sheesh. Okay, let's lower our voltage. Let's go down to 1 volt. We're gonna redo this. Okay. Let's do this one more time. Okay, so let me turn off the engine. Let's analyze the data here. Okay, I like the consistency in the peaks and valleys of our relative compression. Okay, let's redo this. Let me put more time across the screen. Let's go to 2 seconds. And then let's filter this. Okay, so this is enough data. As you can see, our peaks and valleys over here look fine across the screen. Let me grab some cursors. So if we go here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so based on what I see on the lab scope screen, we do not have a compression problem with this engine. Okay, our humps or peaks and valleys across the screen look pretty identical. Now, this test is not 100% accurate, but it gives us an indication of how the engine is doing mechanically. Okay, I like what I see here. Okay, so we can rule out mechanical issues. So now, what are we going to test? What's the next test you would do if you were diagnosing this? So now the next test I would like to do is, although the fuel pump was changed, I want to get my fuel pressure gauge. When I opened the hood, I looked at the rail, the fuel rail under the hood. The fuel pressure testing port is really easy to access. So I'm gonna grab my fuel pressure gauge. Let's check our fuel pressure and see what's gonna happen, because let's turn the key on first. Let's look up the spec on this engine. Although we have negative numbers on the fuel trim numbers, but you never know, okay? Never assume, always double check the data. Always double check the data you have on the scan tool, because based on the numbers that we have, I don't think we have a fuel delivery problem, but I'm just gonna double check that to be 1000% sure that our issue is not fuel delivery. So let's go to our guided components test. This is a 6.2 liter. Let's go to engine, fuel system, fuel pressure spec. Okay, so it says key on, engine off with the fuel pump commanded on. The fuel pressure should be 380 to 425 kPa or 55 psi. So between 55 and 62 psi. Okay, so that's a quick test we can do. Let's go under the hood and do that. All right, so we are under the hood. Before we do our testing on the fuel rail, before we check the fuel pressure, there's one test I thought about, and I want to do it as we're testing the fuel pressure. I would like to connect my amp clamp around the power wire that supplies power to all the injectors, so I can look at the current ramp of all the injectors. And then I also want to look at the current And then I also want to look at the current ramp of all the coils, okay? So let's go to our wiring diagram. I'm gonna look at the wiring diagram to see what fuse sends power to the injectors and what fuel. I want to look at the wiring diagram to see what fuse sends power to the injectors and what fuel sends power to the coils, because we can use a fuse body with an amp clamp. We can remove the fuse and put a fuse body. We can remove the fuse and put a fuse body where the fuse goes, so we can measure the current of all the coils and the injectors. So let's go to our service info, because we can look at the current that the injectors are drawing, and then we can do the math to figure out if we have injectors that are not working well. So we're working outside here. I don't know how well the Wi-Fi is going to be out here to pull out our wiring diagrams. Okay, right there. Grand Sport base ZR1. Which one is this one? Is this one a base? Is it? Yeah? Okay. Cameraman Kyler says it's a base. You think so? You sure?
Yeah, it's not a Z06.
Okay. It's not a Grand Sport? Is it written in the back? Let me just double check. No. Okay, so this is a base. Cameraman Kyler was right. I went and double checked on our shop management system. Yes, it's a base. So we're gonna click on base. Convertible, right? This is a 2D coupe convertible. This is not convertible. Okay, so it's a 2D coupe. I don't know if that even matters. So automatic transmission. So we're gonna go to our wiring diagram. Now we're filming the whole process of the diagnosis on this vehicle, so I don't know how long this video is gonna be. We might have to break it down into multiple parts. What do you think, Kyler? Multiple parts? Okay. Cameraman Kyler says we're gonna break it down into multiple parts, so we'll see. Kyler will decide. So we're gonna go to engine performance. So there's a 6.2 VIN T and 6.2 VIN W. Frick. Okay, let me check the VIN. Okay, so this is VIN W. So we're gonna click on W. So let's scroll down and see. Okay, this is what I wanna see. So it looks like we have a couple fuses that supply power to the injectors. So we have fuel injectors 1, 3, 5, and 7. Top engine side, top left side of engine. So we have fuse 16. It's a 20 amp fuse. It's in the under the hood fuse box. So it's this one. And then let me highlight this. So it's not just one fuse that supplies power to all the injectors. So we have this one here. So fuse 16 supplies power to one bank, and then fuse 12 supplies power to the injectors on the other bank. So let's follow these wires. Where do they go? These pink wires. One of them goes to the coil. So the same fuse supplies power to the ignition coils on one bank. Interesting. Okay. All right, so that's good to know. Let's go back to the previous page. You guys will see this when Kyler puts this on the screen. Okay, so it looks like fuse 16 supplies power to the injectors and the coils on one bank, and then fuse 12 supplies power to the injectors and the coils on the other. So we need fuse 16 and fuse 12. So we're gonna check fuse 16 first. So we're gonna remove this cover. Let's see if we can find if these fuses are numbered. We need 16, so right here. Fuse 16, what does it say here? 16, it says even injectors. Oh, okay. So even injectors. So on the bank that has even numbers. So 16, I think this is how this fuse box is. No, it's this way. So 16 is, which one is it? Oh, it's this guy. You can see right here. So fuse 16 is going to be this one. But over here we have it's supposed to be a 20 amp fuse. We have a 15 amp fuse. Am I looking at the right one? Yeah, because this is this. These two are these two over here. And you can tell based on the layout here. Yeah, oh, actually they're numbered too, right here. I don't know if cameraman Kyler can see that. So they are numbered. So this is 16. So I'm gonna grab my fuse body and then I'll be right back. All right, so here's our fuse body. I'm going to disconnect this fuse. We're gonna put fuse 16 in the fuse body here. Like that. And then we're gonna connect this right there. Now I'm going to grab my amp clamp. All right, so we're going to connect our amp clamp over here, just like that. And then we are done with these test leads. I'm gonna connect my amp clamp to the lab scope. Okay, now we're gonna connect our pressure gauge to the fuel system. We have our Icon Master Fuel Injector Kit. Do you remember what happened to this one? There's a backstory about this gauge. Only Kyler and I know. Okay. If you guys want to know, let us know in the comments. I don't even know if we're going to share that, but just live stream? Okay. You need to come watch the live stream so we can tell you why Kyler and I are laughing about this. Okay. So I need to grab the right adapters. I think this is it right here. So we're gonna connect this to this. Okay. All right. Now let's connect this to the fuel system. I am going to undo. So this is our service port on the fuel system. I'm gonna undo this little cap here. And then we're gonna connect this. Oops. This over here. Nice. And then we're gonna connect our pressure gauge to this adapter. Nice. All right. So now let me get my, actually I can start the engine and then I will set up the lab scope as the engine is running. So I'm gonna get in the car and start the engine. Remember, our pressure spec was between 55 and 62 psi. So let's see what we got. So the engine is running. What's the pressure? We have 60 psi, so that's good. So fuel pressure is not our problem, so that's good. I kind of knew that we didn't have fuel pressure issue. We didn't have a fuel pressure issue, but I just wanted to double check. So that's good. So let me go to the scope. Okay. So let's go to our scan tool. So fuel pressure is fine. This engine sounds good though. Like, sounds pretty good. Interesting. There's a minor misfire, like a tiny fish bite misfire. Okay, so let's go to our lab scope screen. Let's hide our cursors. Let's change our probe to 20 amp. I'm gonna turn on our amp clamp here. Our amp clamp is on. Why we're not seeing anything? I think this battery is dead. I don't know if my amp clamp battery is even working. This is where knowing the limitations of your tool comes in place. This is odd. Let me see if I can connect to one injector wire. So it's pretty easy to get to this injector wire. So I'm gonna connect to one injector wire. I just wanna look at the pattern of one injector wire. So I have my amp clamp clamped around one injector wire. Let's see what's gonna happen here. I should be able to see the pattern of the injector. Oh, right here. Okay, so here's the pattern of one injector. So one injector is drawing about, let's see here, about 1.5 amp. Let me grab my cursors. Let's measure this. Okay, so at the peak of the ramp, we're drawing about 1.14, so about 1 amp. Okay, I'm going to hide our cursors. So based on the pattern that I see on this injector, I don't really see a problem here. It's hard for me to make a definitive call based on this pattern that I see. I'm going to, let's turn off our trigger. I'm gonna move, so if Kyler can show this, now I'm gonna move my amp clamp from the injector to this fuse body here. It's interesting how I can't see anything from this fuse. Very odd. Very, very odd. All right, so it's getting late. We're gonna stop here. Let me turn off the engine. All right, guys, so a couple of things we know. We have good fuel delivery to the engine. We still have a misfire. At this point, I would like to check all the injectors and then the coils. I need to figure out what's gonna be the easiest and best test I can do. We're gonna stop here. It's getting late. We're gonna continue next week because it's Friday. We will bring you guys back up on Monday morning so we can continue with the diagnosis on this video. So cameraman Kyler, thanks for being here. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. See you guys in part 2.